If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dr. Kyle. Glad you're here with the Driven Athlete Podcast. We got two cool guests with us that have traveled down a little bit of a distance, right, from Port St. Lucie.
Yeah.
We got Victor and Aaron, and they are performance coaches and co-founders of Prime Performance for baseball athletes. So thank y'all for coming down. Share more about where y'all are located and who y'all work with specifically.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you want.
Yeah. So we're located in Port St. Lucie. We really specialize in the player development sector for baseball and specifically on the pitching side, expanding into the hitting side. Our job and our goal here and our mindset with this whole thing is like make it a one-stop shop for our athlete that comes in. We really focus on the strength and conditioning side as well as the corrective movement and assessment side, and really tie that all into the overall development and performance of our athletes. We're not like a velocity, factory. We don't focus mainly on velo. We put all our eggs in the basket of performing when the lights come on, and equipping our athletes with that ability to do that at a high level, at every level. So that's kind of like the main focus we have on our athletes.
Yeah. I think, the big thing for us is just making it easier for the athlete, right? Like this time period, it's everybody is really good. Everybody throws very hard. Everybody hits the ball very far. And everything that goes behind the scenes with that, it's a lot, so like, having a strength guy, having a pitching guy, having a nutritionist, then, are they all on the same page with everything, right? So how can we, kind of pull everything together, have one coach that you can go back to and be able to, that's your one point of contact that you can talk with. They know you very well, because throughout your career, you're going to have 1,000 coaches. And it's not to talk bad about those coaches, but I think, having one guy that you can go back and rely on, or one place you can go back and rely on that knows you very well, that, knows your body, your strengths, your weaknesses, it's extremely helpful, and you don't feel like, you maybe get told something, you backtrack, and then, what does that create from that, right? So
yeah, a lot of conflicting opinions.
Exactly.
It could be like a lot of opinions that just like you don't know what to believe and who to trust.
And then you have social media now, so it's
even worse.
Yeah, it's like you get 1,000 things put in your head, and it's like I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me, what I should do, what I should work on.
Yeah.
So having a guy that you can rely on, and more than anything, just like be a mentor, because there's a lot of things that we can help with, and each athlete is going to be different. There's going to be some athletes that we work with that they really need to work on the strength and conditioning part. There's some guys that, maybe higher level athletes that we work with, professionals that, they're big and strong, but they're not healthy. They've played for a while, they've went through a lot of things, or, maybe, they've got to a certain point, up to high A, double A, but they're missing something in their arsenal that they need to go get to the big leagues. So it's, it's about like, finding the cup that's not filled up, and what can we do to fill that one up and make sure that, every bucket or every cup is filled up and you're performing the way you should in every aspect.
For sure. The hard part too with our sport is like you're on a timestamp, a time clock, right? Like if you're really, really good at what you do on a baseball field, you could probably do it until you're like 35. And that's, you're signing big time contract, you're establish yourself as like a dude. So like every step of the way matters. Like from when you are in high school all the way through, like you should probably be devoting some resources and time to actually developing and
the window of opportunity is small.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting there in our culture. Like I think the culture has shifted from we need to play more to like we need to get better so we can perform at a higher level so we get more opportunities. Yeah. That's kind of like this shift that we're having in this sector right now.
Yeah. It's something that I would feel like I try to communicate a lot to the athletes we work with, like young athletes, where I'm like, yo, we understand and appreciate that the window of opportunity is small, where like somebody has only 2 years maybe to showcase themselves in high school, that then sets the trajectory for them to go to college. And then they have like 2 to 3 years in college to really showcase themselves, to solidify an opportunity, maybe go to the next level, right? Which is super rare, of course, but like, if somebody's hobbling around with injury, you know what I mean, and they can't play and they're sitting on the bench, I've seen that a bunch, and there's meandering around. They have no answers. They're not sure what to do. They're waiting for this test. They're waiting for this image, this doc's response, like whatever. In the meantime, they're just like not doing anything. I was like, that is what we do, right? And then get them out to you guys so that y'all can beef them up and make them better athlete and performers, you know? But anyway, the window of opportunity is small, right? And it sucks when somebody's like limited and not able to perform when they want to, or at the highest level they can, with a lack of exposure to training and stuff, you know. Yeah. Y'all both played college baseball.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Where'd you play?
I played at the University of New Mexico.
University of New Mexico.
I stayed home and played in my backyard and had a pretty good career. And I knew I wasn't going to be a big leaguer, so coaching was in my future. So I just jumped right into it. I was a pitcher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Righty or lefty?
Righty.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Unfortunately, my career ended on an injury, so I took it as far as I can go. But yeah, that just kind of.
What happened?
I tore my UCL in senior weekend, and I took it as far as I can go. I was super happy that I could go that far. I just knew I wanted to get into a coaching career, so I wasn't going to pursue a rehab stint and maybe play indie ball and maybe get an opportunity. Like my passion was coaching.
That's a journey.
Yes,
the indie ball and
the grind.
Yeah,
yeah.
Undrafted free agent. Low ball, like, oh man, it sucks.
Bus rides,
it's hard.
Going nowhere.
Yeah,
triple headers.
Broke.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And then you were at Wichita State.
Yeah, so I went to a JUCO, Coffeyville Community College, just small JUCO in Kansas. JUCO grind. Then went to Wichita State for 2 years, and then had one more COVID season. I went to a D2 Emporia State. And that was it. Same thing, kind of. I wanted to keep playing. My back was in shambles, and came to the idea that, maybe it's probably, time to start just coaching and, be able to get out of bed each day and feel good.
Yeah. What position?
Pitcher, right-handed pitcher.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, same thing.
What started going with your back?
So I would say even back in JUCO, I started to deal with some sciatica. So, had some herniation issues. Wasn't bad, but then as my career progressed and I started to it was my last year, just horrific sciatica, lightning bolt down my right leg. And, it was a thing where I could still go out and pitch, but I just was not the same. And there's probably a lot of things that contributed to it. I lifted really hard when I was in high school. I played football, so I was cleaning as much as I could, squatting as much as I could. Looking back at it, anatomically, how I'm built, I probably shouldn't have been loading up the bar and doing extremely heavy back squats, heavy cleans. So that probably contributed to it. And then just like the aggressive rotational nature of pitching over and over and over again, the same direction, I think over time just kind of tore me up. So it was really, I had dealt with it throughout my college career. That last year was when it really started getting bad. It eventually started to kind of clear up a little bit. I worked with a remote PT, Dr. J Physio X, which is a place up in Boston.
Okay. Worked
with him, took me through the McKinsey method.
Okay.
And then kind of took over some of the strength and conditioning things for me. And, truth be told, it wasn't necessarily like, what he did for me, but it was like what he took away from me. Like, hey, let's maybe stay away from this. And I started feeling better. So, towards the end of the season, I started feeling a little bit better, but it was a battle. It was a battle to just like, push through it most days. And mentally it starts to get draining.
Yeah. 100%. That's a big one. I feel like too, that is underlooked or undervalued, of like the psychological, just the relating to like knowing like, I know what you're going through, you know what I mean? Cause it sucks, you know? And a little bit of encouragement, like when you see improvements, it's always super helpful, of course. But anyway, but hear stories like that, and we're like, man, we wish we would have worked with someone like yourself in that moment, because that stuff is solvable. Where the low back pain and tightness with preferred pain down the leg, sciatica type symptoms, that's a really common thing for pitchers. Hyperextending through the low back, it's usually a core stability recruitment issue with some glute stability too, and then some of the spinal mobility disparities through the back, and then working on mechanics. Like I'm not a pitching coach by any means, we're biomechanics and pain, but like communicating with pitching coaches too and talking to the athlete themselves. Anyway, it's a bummer, you know, where we hear stories like that and we're like, I'm very confident that we could have been significantly impactful for your career and direction. But anyway, with pitchers, I mean, elbow, shoulder, and then low back. Those are the three most common things. I would put it shoulder, low back, and elbow in those three tiers. This is super common. So y'all fit in both those two boats.
Prototype.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned your guys' development and strength training and your processes and stuff. You're like, we're not just going to work on velocity, like getting people to throw harder and faster. Why not?
Yeah, I think
is that a common thing where it's like they're just the velo clinic, like let's just throw as fast as you can?
Yeah, I think that's pretty common because truth be told, it's probably one of the easiest things to measure in our industry, right? There's a radar gun everywhere. You go to a big event like Jupiter's having a huge event, right? And you'll see a bunch of radars guns get raised up. It's just kind of what gets your attention, right? And I fell into that when I was a college coach. Like, it's like, okay, well, there's a threshold you have to throw, right? Like to play at the Division I level, to play in our program. But it truly doesn't tell the story, right?
What is that threshold?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the age. I would say like obviously 90 is easy. 90 miles an hour is a pretty easy threshold to kind of stamp there. But you know, the higher you go, the higher you should probably throw, or you should have an outlier pitch or perform at a high level. And that's like kind of like what that tracks down to. It's like velo, outlier pitch. Well, how does he perform? Like that's kind of how you look at it.
Gotcha.
And I think truly velo gets you the attention, but performance gives you opportunity, right? Like that's kind of how it gets broken down. And velo, I don't want to say it's easy to train, but there are some good methods that are like tried and true to get you higher velo. Now it's like performing. Like we want to extend careers. We don't just want to be a velo monkey and you hit a 95, but you don't play baseball. You know, you just like went to the carnival and hit 95.
Yeah.
I think that's a little different. That's where we appeal to athletes more so, is like understanding that performance is more than just velo. It's a great chapter in the book and it probably pertains to a lot of people, but it's not the whole novel, right? Like it's just a piece of the story.
I would imagine just like trying to sling it as fast as you can. The longevity for that is not going to be as likely.
No, and truly, like there's a lot more that goes into it, right? Like there's a lot of compensations that happen if you're not strong enough, not ready, and you're just trying to throw as hard as you can. Sometimes that is a method though. Like sometimes guys aren't trying to throw hard and they're expecting it to just come easy. So it's really getting to know your athlete, understanding his background and what he's tried before. And I think what we do, and Beck can speak on this more, is like we really take a look under the hood. Like it's not just a guess. We have really cool technology installed at our facility, some good methods that we use that like it's educated guesswork, but it goes beyond that. Like we have a really good system of testing, evaluating, refining what we're doing, and having like a good runway and an idea for each and every athlete.
That's cool. What stuff?
So, you know, basically, if you were an athlete, you sign up and we're going to take you through a full assessment. That's a movement assessment. So, you know, obviously just, you know, kind of taking them through some movements and see from a, you know, scap, shoulder, hip, spine, neck standpoint, anything like that. You know, we're trying to see, you know, how you move. And then from there, we're doing like some VALD force plate testing, VALD force frame, grip strength, you know, just trying to get a good idea of, you know, how well can you produce power? How well can you absorb power? And then, you know, from a pitching standpoint, then we'll throw you up. We have a motion capture and a force plate mound. So then it's like, okay, how do you move on the mound then? How well do you, produce force on the mound? How well do you absorb force on the mound? And we have TrackMan, so we can look at ball flight. So,
Cool.
how well can you, produce spin on the ball? How do you make it move? What's
Let's
your
say y'all
arsenal?
measure RPMs like with.
Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff that we look into. That's one thing. Spin rate gets thrown out there a lot, probably more than anything else. It's honestly not really something that we look at a ton. I think for most of us, we look at some other metrics that are a little bit more important to us.
Like which ones?
So and I'll speak on myself, but for me, I don't look at spin rate a ton. It's because you can't really take a kid and improve spin rate unless there's sticky substances, there's stuff like that. You could probably improve it a little bit, but it's not going to make as big of a change on the pitch movement as you think. And so for me, I'm looking more at like induced vertical movement, horizontal movement. I'm looking at release height, extension, the tilt or axis of the ball, that kind of stuff. Obviously, velocity is a big one. Stuff that you can influence a little bit more. You can speak on that.
Yeah, I think it really individualized for each guy. Like you can bring 10 dudes in, they all throw differently. We're probably looking at different stuff. Like it really is, how can we create separation, identify what makes this kid good, live on those, but also bring the floor up to meet that as well. So I don't think it's just, everything's the same for each person. It's probably a lot like PT, right? Like you're not going to give the same program to each and every person. You're really evaluating each piece of it and then coming up with a solution. But yeah, I think you would probably pull in 4 different coaches that we have, and they would look at different things on TrackMan based on their athletes that they work with. So, but what we do a really good job is filter that information for our athlete, because there is so much. We talked about social media, all this stuff where you can get lost really quick. Like there's a lot of domers out there, that are trying new things. But what we do is we simplify that down, educate them, and then apply it to their development. There's no guesswork. There's no try this, try that. It's like, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to live with this and then move on to the next segment of your development.
Guys that think too much, we call them domers. So if you hear that, just
got it.
Up in the
Domers.
dome.
Yeah, I got
so,
you.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if it's baseball. It feels like it's baseball more than any other sport, probably because it's a little bit more technical than a lot of sports. Football, you go out and it's just pure aggression, but baseball, obviously a little bit more technical, especially the pitchers. There's a lot of social media out right now making fun of pitchers and how they train. And so I think it's a little bit of an epidemic. This is a whole nother thing, but a little bit of an epidemic of overthinking things and training strategies. And so we have guys that we call domers, and they just overanalyze everything. And that's another thing in the assessment process that you can kind of figure out just by having conversations with them. It's like
where they're at on that.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, we go through this whole thing, and it's like physically, here are all these, traits. Now just having conversations with them, up in the head, like where, like, are we lacking, is a performance lacking from, overthinking, like what's going on up there? Cause ultimately it's like everything physical can be really good, but I think it's, the 1% is the ones that are physically talented, and then they can go make it happen and they can perform. And that's usually the mental side of the game.
Yeah, totally. I would totally agree. I think like the main separator from like really good to like, why is it that some athletes are the tip of the spear and other ones are really good? Like, I don't think talent level, they're any much better. It's got to be the mental game. Mm-hmm. Like it has to be the mental game, which is confidence, execution, composure, not overthinking, short memory, all that stuff.
I think the number one thing that I see, and I'm speaking specifically from the pitching side, is like guys that try to think their way through the delivery. The delivery happens so fast that like you can maybe fit in one cue at the very beginning, but after that, it's just like trusting your training and trusting your ability. And I think that's where guys get super domey, is like 9 different cues while we're trying to throw a strike. There's a runner on, game's tied, bottom of the ninth. It's like, you're lost. Like, you already lost, But yeah, I think that the mental side is like, has such a physical effect on what we do. where I feel like right now guys are just digging themselves into a hole.
So
on
what
the
do
website.
y'all do with that? Let's say you have a domey guy and it's like you're thinking too much, overanalyzing.
Yeah, my process is I try to figure out what makes the guy tick. Like more often than not, there's an outside influence, whether that's a parent, coach, girlfriend, some sort of relationship that they have that they feel like they can use through their performance, right? So really understanding like what are we trying to accomplish? How do we simplify it? And redefining what success looks like for them. So for me, like just in my experience on coaching on the college side, like everyone, going back to the velocity talk, like everyone wants to throw hard. Well, like if you give up 5 runs in an inning, but you hit 93, are you going to think that's successful? Well, you're not going to play. First off, if that's the case, if that's how you perform. So like really understanding and redefining success for each guy and understanding what makes them tick, like gives you an idea of their thought process and understands where they're coming from and how they're approaching their training and performance in general.
Gotcha. That's makes sense. What are your thoughts on like sports psychology and stuff, like sports psychologists, professionals in that, mental performance coaches?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that the plan to have y'all like have some on board with y'all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, again, we want to be a one-stop shop, So, having somebody that you can talk to, and it's like for us, to a certain extent, we can help, right? We've been through a lot.
Yeah, so y'all can relate.
Yeah, we can relate
For insights.
Yeah, and we have perspective. But I think, having somebody that's trained, that knows, what questions to ask and how to navigate conversations is super helpful.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's definitely, it's in the works. It's something that we want to do for sure. My best friend back home is studying right now to do that.
Cool.
And I know, for him, it was career changing, just kind of diving into it a little bit more and caring about it more. He was a guy that, kind of had a roller coaster career and then started to kind of invest himself more in that and learning some of the methodologies. He had a professor that was very influential for him in college. And after that, it was steady, of course, he still dealt with failure here and there, but he knows how to deal with it better. He knows how to kind of take that and use it as fuel, or, just like, is this important? Do I need to worry about this? Or do I, just get back to the process and keep going?
Yeah. In your words, you mentioned like, how do you play when the lights are on? Would you like, is that a major contributing factor where it's like the lights are on, you have all this training, now perform. There's a block, not doing well, consistent, like what the heck, right?
For sure.
The talent's there, the physical attributes are there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the artistic side that comes with coaching a little bit, is like we're also like environmental engineers. Like we got to be able to know like it's our job to make sure this guy's ready for that. So how do we do that? We add extra stressors. We can do that through training. We can do that strictly through the mental side of things too, right? So I do think that's a big block for a lot of guys. And I think that's where like a sports psychologist comes in. I think that's kind of like this next step, like this well-rounded service that we provide, is we can look into that a little bit more. There's a lot more that goes into it than probably we even know at the moment. And every, situation, every individual is a little different, but like, it's also our job to understand like, okay, what does this guy's goals look like? Where's he currently at? Like, how can we recreate this environment for this guy through our training? Maybe it's a bullpen, maybe it's lifting, like just create some automated stressors for him to learn how to deal with. Maybe, buck him off the horse, see how he responds, use that as a learning point. And ultimately, like when the lights come on, like that's when you're expected to play and perform.
Right.
And that performing at a high level there creates more opportunity, creates more success. Like that's what everyone is training for, right? It's like a track athlete training for the Olympics. How do you prep for that? Well, you probably should throw yourself in an environment that duplicates that or replicates that to some extent, right?
Yeah. I've always felt like ran with the Olympics, like track athletes like that, like made it all the way there and then they false start at the Olympics. I'm like, oh, that would be the most deflating.
One job.
Man, that sucks. Yeah. Like that's where you at least, it's a bummer, I don't know how that happened. Just it sucks, Have you had any like really good success stories that y'all have worked with young pitchers growing, developing, or people y'all have coached?
You've been coaching a lot longer than I have.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I try to think of it more in terms of like, you know, again, where they started and where they're at. Truly, some of my coolest stories aren't like a big leaguer. It's like a kid that made his high school team, right? That had no shot.
That's very profound.
For sure. Like that, sets
like
you on a totally different trajectory. And those are the ones close to my heart. Cause it's like, yeah, I can take the guy that got drafted, and turn him into a AAA arm, big league arm. Like he already had it. Like it's truly like you're starting from rock bottom. And I think that's like the grassroots of coaching, right? Is like being able to speak to multiple different audiences, different levels, and kind of like break it down at each level. It's not like this information vomit of how smart we are and what we have. It's mainly like, no, can you coach a 2x4 to do what you want them to do, right? Like that's kind of the idea. I don't have specific names. Like it's just really cool to I take more pride in that. Like I've had so much more fulfillment coaching guys than I ever did in my playing career. Like I can't really remember. I remember two things. I remember going to an NCAA regional and winning the conference tournament. Like outside of that, like my playing career is such a blur, but like I can remember specific guys like throwing well after coming back from an injury or working their way back from Tommy John to then becoming a draft pick and now becoming a top 30 prospect in an organization. Like that stuff is really cool. And it's not just, I'm not saying that like for me, it's just like, it's a devotion to those guys and being able to like really put it together and trust the process where a lot of guys want to jump off the ship at the first sign of like stress. And it's like those guys buckled up and doubled down and trusted the process.
That's cool. No, that's a good, I like that though, about the young kid that's like doesn't have all the intangibles and made the team, worked hard and like made the team. I love that. That's cool. What would you say are let's say you have like a young kid that's freshman in high school or wants to be in a team in high school. What are the keys to success? Where it's like you want to play well in high school as a pitcher or pitcher, and compete, maybe have a look at some D2 or D1 options in college, like play the next level maybe. Yeah. What are the keys to success for them?
Yeah. So, if I'm getting like a young high school kid, a lot of those kids, just terrible proprioception, like they're just, in general, they're not great athletes. And so like
coordination, balance, movement control.
Yeah. So starting there, you'd love to say like, oh, let's just hop them on the mound. Let's start throwing hard. Right. But it's like, okay, I equate it to this usually, if you want to like go run fast, you work at, running fast. You want to go jump high, you go work on jumping high, just being generally just a good athlete, right? So like the throw is no different, right? So yes, there is the, skill acquisition of going and practicing throwing, right? But like, how can we just become a really good athlete? So, part of that is going and lifting and becoming stronger. Some of that is sprinting and being more explosive. And just doing things again that gives them, proprioception, variability, just giving them a lot of variability. So, from a throwing side, it's like, long toss a lot, throw from different arm slots, throw different weighted balls, maybe a 7 ounce or a 6 ounce as you're going out, then move to a 5 ounce. Throw some plyos before you get into long toss, throw bullpens, throw different types of bullpens. So just a lot of variability and, letting them just kind of like run with that. Right. Setting goals, I think, is a big one, like if they don't really know what to go after and they have no perspective on that, then you're just kind of like, you're walking in a dark room. You don't know what you're doing, right? So setting goals up front and that usually, they'll get fired up, they'll get fired up because it's like, oh, I get to that and then we can set more goals after that. And I think, that's a thing where, you can you have maybe a big goal, you can kind of chop it up a little bit more and, we accomplished this and then this and this and this. And then you look back and you're like, wow, look how much I've accomplished in 6 months and how much better I am. So, I mean, it's everything really, not to, give such a big answer, but I, again, wish it was as easy as, well, you just go work on throwing hard and you're going to go get offers, it's working on everything. Yeah.
I would add to that, like, it's probably, and this is not like a business plug at all, but it's like investing your resources in actually developing, right? Like there's 12U and 13U tournaments. Well, like, how about spending that money and actually getting yourself developed? Like providing those resources, not just on exposure, but also on like getting better.
Yeah.
And I also think like going back to more like at the technical side, like letting them explore movements, right? Like I think it's really easy, especially in the pitching and hitting world, to get very technical and like robotic with what we do. We're in
And
reality
locked into one thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, like I think the number one question I get asked by parents is like, should we play other sports? And the answer every time without hesitation is like, yes, you should. Like there's no doubt about it. Like again, proprioception, athleticism, just overall coordination is probably a lot of kids' lowest hanging fruit for their development. And then introducing movements in the weight room, then kind of like simplifying and like really zoning in on specific niches like pitching, hitting, fielding, whatever it is, catching. Like that is what can then drive that next step of development. But that's like the tip of the iceberg. Like coordination, athleticism, experimental movements are probably where it all starts. And honestly, that helps you fall in love with the game, right? Like really love what you do is probably the overall arching theme of what we do.
I think I totally agree with like the multi-sport thing. There's a couple of things that I've heard I'll get into in a second, but one of my an insight with that is like, because I played a lot of sports. I'm sure you all played growing up multiple sports too. I always liked it because I was like, if I played basketball, and then I knew I had baseball season coming up, and then I played baseball. There's a lot of carryover for different aspects of each sport. Like this made me a better baseball player. This made me a better basketball player. This made me a football player. Like whatever. And then also just different perspectives. Like how can I utilize this in this next season, this game, this sport versus this sport? Anyway, there's a lot of carryover. And then also when you remove it and you do something else, you might miss it more. And then over several years, you're like, I actually just like this better. And then it makes you want to do it more, versus like specializing right away. And then you just get burnt out,
Yeah. I think from an injury standpoint too, it's like,
that's what I was going to say next. Yeah.
So personally, and I know this is, it's, I would say uncommon. I have never had like any sort of arm pain, no elbow pain, shoulder pain throughout my whole career. And there's probably a lot of factors that go into that. But like I was playing football, I was playing baseball. And so I wasn't throwing year round, I wasn't going and throwing all throughout fall ball and then throwing bullpens throughout the whole winter and then whole spring and whole summer. So I think that's just like another reason to like go play sports and
removing that stress for sure.
Yeah.
There was something that came out that my wife's also a PT, and we were talking about this like literally a couple weeks, like maybe last weekend we were driving, but there's less likelihood of injury risk for multi-sport athletes, and then also likelihood of them excelling at a higher level for multi-sport athletes. And I was like, I wonder if just like the relationship between they play more sports, naturally there's more coordinated and athletic, so they're like less likely of getting injured by doing the same thing over and over again with not as maybe just general coordination, athleticism, and then also removing that individual stress for the season and then going back to it again. So taking breaks, like you can't do vertical jump training 365, you know what I mean? But anyway, removing that stress. And then the other of the more likely, like the super high level athletes, they would report that they played multiple sports when they were kids. Same thing. I think there's carryover with like all the athleticism and then the relationship, team camaraderie, managing different stressful situations that could be applied for different sports, where just like being intimidated maybe, you know what I mean? Where it's like, well, if you played football and you're landing up with a dude that's twice your size, then I can handle this, right? This is not physically scary, you know what I mean? Which is a different intimidation, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm an advocate for all that. Totally. We're getting our kids, like I got 3 kids, so we're getting them into like, we're trying to expose them to a lot of different things, with that in mind. Trying to do drills and stuff with them, like coordination drills. Yeah. There's like this game that I saw on social media. All right. But I was like, this is kind of cool. But it was like, I had them stand at the bottom of the stairs with like a solo cup and both kids. And then you bounce ping pong balls down the stairs and they got to catch it in the cup. So they have to like run over and like try to catch it. They did terrible. Yeah. But they were they were going after it.
Yeah.
It was first time.
Yeah. I think about stuff like that all the time you know, I don't want to sound like I'm a boomer right now, but, you know, our kids nowadays that, you know, tend to be more on like the iPads and playing video games all day, are they going to miss out on, you know, some of these experiences where, like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I'm like running through the basement, like seeing how far I can jump over this couch, and like, you know, I'm running up the stairs. How many steps is it going to take for me to get all the way up the stairs, or just doing like crazy stuff like that. And I'm surprised I didn't get hurt more. But at the same time, I'm like, I wonder if doing all of that stuff made me a better athlete.
I don't think so. Yeah,
You know?
I would agree totally. And also just like what I'd heard too of like agency and maybe grit, where also imagination, there's creativity, but agency being like, we're bored, we don't have anything to do, and you make up games and you just like make it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that carries over a lot to like sports later, and then just being an adult and just having the agency to like do research, figure out what you want to do, and then just like take action to doing that thing.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know, getting an iPad stuffed in your face.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember trying to play like, how long can I keep the balloon up?
oh,
You know, I'm like,
OG
man,
game.
that's some of the most athletic moves I think I've ever made.
yeah,
Jumping over a guy.
diving,
Yeah,
yeah,
jumping over,
absolutely.
running into people,
Yeah.
you know, holding people down.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Keep you uppy. That's there's a,
Yeah.
do y'all have kids?
I have one. Yeah.
Do y'all have Bluey yet?
We're like more of a Paw Patrol type.
Paw Patrol,
family.
okay, yeah. Blue, I highly recommend Blue. Also
Okay.
dogs.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Blue's a great show, and they play Keep You Uppy in it. It's an Australian family of
Gotcha.
healer dogs.
Gotcha.
It's very popular.
All right.
It's
We'll
pretty
get on
funny.
that.
It's pretty
I
funny.
think we've blown through every Paw Patrol episode
Yeah.
4 times now, so we should probably.
And it's like a wholesome show, and it's
Yeah.
super simple.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny for like an adult. It's like, oh my gosh, like Coco. You ever watch Coco Melon?
Yep.
Oh, that Miss Rachel. You watch Miss Rachel?
A couple times. Yeah.
Oh, that one's the worst. That and Coco Melon. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But Blue is actually kind of entertaining.
Okay.
For an adult stamp. But anyway, they say Keep You Uppy on that show.
Keep you uppy.
Yeah.
Dude.
I was like, yeah, we call it a keep up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Diving, just run into people. Yeah, it was a blast. That's funny, man. What do you guys say? Like, all right, so the keys to success for young athletes growing up: play multiple sports, proprioception, which is like balance, control, movement, coordination, body kinesthetic awareness of like what you're doing, not being uncoordinated. When they are doing well, they're in their high school, they're varsity, and they're a starter, right? They're doing well, and they're like, I want to play college. Then what?
You go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me is like I'm going to speak from like a recruiting standpoint here of
Yeah.
what I look at. So
Yeah.
how does he handle failure? I think a lot of kids that are high level in the high school is like, okay, you're probably the best player on your team. Like, what's going to happen when you hit failure? Well, I think you can do that in training and develop in general. Is like, if you're successful at every drill, everything you do, you're not really growing and learning. So like, I think it's really pushing the boundaries on how much you can fight through the failure. So like, that can be as simple as a drill. Like if you're crushing a drill, it's probably time for us to switch it up. You know, like you're going to make compensations because you're just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah.
But I guess a more like wholesome look at it, at that level, it's like, okay, like establishing, like really having a good idea of where you may fall short, because the second you step on college campus, you are filled with all Americans and guys that were the dudes at their own high school. So, just having that reality of like, it's still unfinished. Like you're watching big leaguers right now in the playoffs that are making millions of dollars, Cy Young awards, MVP, that are like kind of going through it, you know, like they're trying to perform and figure out how they can extend their career. I think for me, it's like, now it becomes like the tip of the pen a little bit, like when it comes to development. Now we're really getting into like the small nitty gritty stuff where maybe it is pitch design stuff. Maybe it is, you know, pitch selection on the hitting side or bat path, whatever it may be, establishing where you may fall short and ultimately like how you stack up at the next level. I think the more advanced you get, you got to start comparing yourself to the next level. So then that high level college guy needs to compare themselves to that big leaguer.
Yeah.
And that big leaguer needs to compare themselves to the all-star or the MVP.
Right.
That's kind of where it comes down to, is kind of, I guess I'd look at it more of like a status quo type thing where like you shouldn't feel settled. Like if you feel like you shouldn't feel comfortable where you're at because there's another dude breathing down your neck trying to take your spot, you know?
I like that. How well can they manage and handle failure? And then what do they do next if they crumble?
Right.
You know, if they complain or just mope, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's definitely a big sign.
Yeah.
You agree? Like anything else you would add?
No, I was going to say just like, learning high level skills, you know, like trying to, you know, if you're a high school athlete, young college athlete, it's like learning how to go be a big leaguer. If that's what you want to be, learning how to go be a big leaguer. You know, what is the process of that? What does that look like for them? Creating routines and like knowing like, all right, when I get to the field today, like, what does that look like for me? And like, what is my process, what I'm going to go through? Cause ultimately, like, I think, you know, kind of back to the mental side of the game, like that's what creates the consistency, you know, is just, you talk to, you know, the big leaguers, any athlete at a super high level, it's like they're so ingrained into their routine and their process that results don't matter. Nothing, none of the other fluff matters. It's just back to what they know makes them better. And so, you know, it's getting that in the heads of the, you know, those high school, college kids.
So less outcome based.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like I always tell guys, like, let's not focus on the results. Like, yeah, you're gonna be tempted to go look at them. It's cool to know how many guys you struck out.
Right.
But ultimately, if you do that, you're gonna ride a little bit of a roller coaster, you know, because you are gonna fail. I mean, there's nobody on the planet that just doesn't ever fail, ever, you know. So you're gonna fail. How can you kind of be Eddie steady and appreciate, you know, this good outing, this bad outing, but no, like can always go back to your process, and your process is what just keeps you level headed.
Yeah. I love that. I wish I would have known that when I was,
Me
you know,
too.
playing sports, like not outcome based, focus on what you know, habits and consistency routines that you know are going to lead to the best results, and not being like, results driven, where it's like you're going to be a roller coaster, you know, and then you're crushed. Like I'm bad, I'm good. I'm bad again. And then, it sucks.
I heard this, to be honest, I can't remember where I heard this. I think it was from a big leaguer, but it's like sometimes the game gets in the way of training. It's like, oh, got a game today. Like they fall in love with the process so much that it gets to the point of like, that's what they're looking for. Like that's how they compare and compete with themselves. And it's also, I mean, sometimes even as a coach, like when I was in college, like the idea of winning and losing ball games got in the way of development. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to play the guys and put the arms there on the mound that can help you win a ball game, where like that takes away time from helping Timmy, who could help us next year, you know, or help us next week. I don't know. I think it's more of like a process thing where like you fall in love with the process and then just get to express it during the game.
Yeah.
And then you find the next hole in your game and then you go attack that for your next performance.
Yeah. Love that. Another thing I was going to say, that with like the high level, like the kids that are like doing well, you know, and they're comfortable, they're feeling themselves, right, which is good. You got to get confident. Is training with other like-minded athletes that are a little bit better. Sure. And you go in this studio facility and you're like, oh, shoot, like these guys are getting after it. You know, like I thought I was doing my workouts hard, but that was not compared to what they're doing.
Right.
And it's like eye opening. And then you want to be like them, you know, and you surround yourself with that. That's always been, I enjoyed that. And then also when it's necessary to stimulate a bit of humility in the right athletes, like you think you're working hard, dude, you know, like let's go to this place.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the great thing about, you know, our facility, and you know, some of these other environments that you can get into is you might be able to, you know, have a high schooler with a big leaguer, and they're not at the same level, but they're like, that's what I gotta, if I want to go accomplish my goals, like that's what I got to get to, you know? And I think getting in that environment's very real. But you know, getting into it, you can also kind of allow that to elevate you, right? Because if you're in an environment where, you know, guys aren't working as hard or they don't care as much as, you know, you do, then, I mean, you know, you might get better, but it's probably not going to push the needle as much as if you were in that other environment. So, I think training environment in general is huge. And I think that even goes to, like we have a nice facility, but like nothing's going to be just like a great culture.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, like that's what we want to create is like, yeah, we have a nice facility, we have some cool gadgets, but like the training culture is just incredible. And you get in here and like you are going to get better because yeah, we have high level coaches, but the people that you're around, everything that you're doing is going to push you up.
Yeah. I think just the fear of being exposed of not fitting that culture is probably like the biggest driver.
You
like
gotta
the
work
FOMO, imposter syndrome, whatever it is, it's like, man, I gotta step it up. So I think, relating it back to like that high school, like that's usually the first thing is walking in the weight room your freshman year and going, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like it's time to ramp it up here. But I think in general, just, I don't need to say it anymore. Culture's like the driver, right? Behind everything. It sets the tone, creates the environment, and then you can just let it ride with that.
What are some of the most common injuries y'all see?
Same thing we talked about. Obviously the elbow. Elbow's the big one. Shoulder, it's probably number 2. Back, hips, those are probably the big ones.
Those are the big ones. Outside of like some soft tissue type stuff, those are like what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Some flexor strain that then leads to the elbow stuff, which probably starts in the shoulder or the back. There's just like always compensating factors. I would say, honestly, like over the last 5-10 years, like the TOS has become like, I don't know. I think it started as like a blanket of like, we're not really sure what's going on. And now it's like an actual thing, right? And trying to figure that out. So, but I would say elbow, shoulder, back is probably the issues.
Gotcha. Thoracic outlet syndrome we were talking about. I don't disagree. That could definitely happen, for sure. And it's something to tease out, like where the symptoms coming from, what's contributing, but it's not uncommon that it's like rooted because of a shoulder instability problem.
Right. There
was this thrower we were working with that they were having like referred nerve pain and there was manifesting in their elbow, And so everyone was like working on like, oh, it's tennis elbow or, golfer's elbow, maybe whatever. And they're just like crushing it. It's not getting better. Actually, it was getting a little bit more sensitive and worse what they were telling me. But anyway, I was like, I think it's brachial plexus compression irritation because of a shoulder instability at layback. So like the anterior weakness, anterior instability, that's causing that. And anyway, a really common thing that I've seen, y'all tell me what you think too, with medial elbow pain, inside elbow pain, the first thing that we usually check out was for sure the shoulder, and they're usually lacking enough pure external rotation.
Yeah.
Where like they're stiff and going to ER.
Yeah. I would say, and he's the genius on this, but I think overall pitchers in general need to pay attention to lat and pec. Like those usually get locked up, and that's like the first sign of like we need to adjust something. But you go ahead. You're the genius.
Yeah. I think it's a thing where it's easy where you could, look at elbow pain. It's like, oh, we got to fix the elbow, but it's more complex than that, So it's like, okay, the elbow hurts. How does the scap move? How does the shoulder work? Maybe let's look there. And if the scap and the shoulder aren't good, maybe let's look at the T-spine. How's a T-spine? So, and I think it's like what we do well. It's like, it's all inclusive. We're going to look at everything and address everything and truly figure out like what the root cause is, because I'm so tired of kids just wanting to ice their arm. It's like, brother, you're putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm right now. Like we're not fixing anything, and the epidemic of popping ibuprofen before every outing, it's like, we can only do this so much.
Yeah.
Let's maybe go fix some stuff, get some things moving better. I also think, and this, this is a hard truth, but I think some bodies are just not meant to throw the ball as well as others, like not everybody is going to go back squat as well as another person, so, that's not ideal. You can improve things for, some guys, but sometimes guys are just going to be more injury ridden than others. And that's that sucks, but you're just going to have to work even harder and make sure that you're doing the soft tish, you're doing some of your correctives and making sure that like whatever you can do, you are doing to try to help that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't disagree with you, you know? And I would also put that too, like, because people have asked me like, how does this pain develop, right? Like, where did it come from? Well, I think it's finally now overwhelmed to a point where it's sending symptoms, signals to pain, like the straw that put the camel's back. And now the chickens are coming home to roost because of underlying movement pattern dysfunction, limitations in mobility, certain areas, a lack of strength or stability in other areas. And then all the compensations, like you were saying, come to play. And I totally agree, though, pec and the lat are usually pretty dominant, and it can mess up the mechanics in the shoulder. But with just overall general coordination and proprioception and movement mechanics and movement control as like kids, that then set the stage for their movement patterns through early adolescence and then through like later high school. Now they're 18. That's usually what I pitch to people, where I'm like, I think it just started when you were a kid. Yeah. With the way that you just learned how to move and groove. And then you didn't have like a pro person like analyze your movement mechanics when you're 8, you know?
Right. Nor should you.
It's not going to do that, right? And that's not going to happen. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then until like some things just manifest later because of those, or the way you learned. And then now it's just manifesting for all the repetitions, thousands of reps and all the force and torque being put through that. Now it's getting exposed.
For sure.
Would you agree with that? I think it's what you were saying earlier, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree. I think the other thing too, with kind of the epidemic of elbow pain is, I think an overlooked factor with it is the overall volume and intent, and people just doing a better job at being able to dose those out and truly like following good throwing programs, you know? So I think, again, it kind of can go back to, your elbow's hurting now, but like, you know, what happened when you were 14, when you maybe like threw way too much, or something that happened in sophomore year of high school. And it's just like, it's an evolution of maybe small things that are starting to add up now. Right. So I think one thing that I pitch to a lot of our athletes is, you know, maybe you're throwing as hard as you want to right now. Maybe everything in your career is going how you want to, but having somebody that can kind of just guide you through a good program, especially on the throwing side of things, can be helpful, because I think just making good micro decisions over time can make that career last a whole lot longer, you know? And
one of those would be just dosing the dosage of throwing.
Yeah, exactly. I think where it really gets messed up a lot of times is, the on-ramp period. So the on-ramp period is like basically if you haven't been throwing and now you're starting to get back into throwing. For a lot of guys, I think you would talk to them and it's just like, oh, I just need to like, you know, play catch a couple times and then have like 1 or 2 bullpens and then they're going and they're throwing in the game. It's like, I see why the shoulder's bugging you right now, you know?
Like, I highly recommend don't do that.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I think you see it in Major League Baseball. Like spring training is going to start up in February, and we will have at least one big time arm go down with Tommy John. Well, the on ramp in our experience is like the window that we got to be careful with. Like we got to take our time through the on ramp. Most injuries happen during that on ramp. And I think the silent killer to arms for when my athletes that I've had is the undocumented volume, right? Like, you know, maybe it's supposed to be like a light catch day. The next thing you know, you're pulling down 10 times trying to see how hard, like that is volume that is getting tacked on. Like we got to look at it as like a year-round volume count, not just today, right? And how that affects tomorrow, next week, your season.
And I think it's hard too, because, you know, as an athlete, it's like you want to go push it.
Yeah.
And for pitchers especially, you're not like a hitter where you can just go hit in the cage every single day. You only get so many days where you can go throw a bullpen or you can be high effort. And so that sucks, but I try to have a lot of conversations with my guys and explain to them like, hey, we are trying to like make those adaptations on those days. These other days, not that we're going through the motions, but we're trying to not do a whole lot of damage on these days. You know, it's still important to pattern on these days and work on the skill acquisition, but like, let's not ruin it for these other days. And so, yeah, it's the volume over time. Like I look at it as you have a spending budget, you have a throwing budget. And so, you spend way too fast, way too early in the week or the month, or maybe on that on-ramp period. And then you're at zero, you're at negative by the time, you need to go spend money or you need to go throw a bullpen or outing. So it's like, how can you be aware of that? And, there's devices and stuff now where you can kind of objectively tell, like, how much are you throwing? What's the intensity, how much it's, stressing. So, valgus in the elbow. There's tools like that. And I think they're extremely helpful. And, not that you have to get obsessed with that. Like, at some point, like we are going to have to push the needle a little bit, but it's too much volume, too much intent, and it not being regulated over time. It starts to add up. And that's where, something eventually starts to creep in.
What about workouts during the on-ramp period?
Yeah. So I think
off-season training, get after it.
Yep.
And then around mid-December, start throwing again.
Yeah. I mean,
or January.
Just kind of depends on the routine that they're in.
But then that on-ramp, let's say like late January, early February, what do you recommend for workouts during that time?
I think it comes down to more volume management. Like, I think the old school thought is like, hey, stay out of the weight room, like maintenance. Well, you're a high level athlete. You should probably also be high level in the weight room.
Weight rooms develop maintenance.
Correct. You're building the engine.
Yeah.
Like when you're playing, you're pressing the gas on that engine. So like if you're not ready and you're redlining, that's where it blows apart, right?
Yeah. Who's still saying get out of the weight room for maintenance?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, you'd be shocked. How many?
Really?
Yep.
I'm surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just different times, right? Different times. Everyone's
different
generation, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think, talking about like just overall volume, like I think you can take that one step further and like overall volume just isn't throwing. It's like the training volume, right? We all have these athletes where it's like they want to just be in the weight room and you kind of have to reel them in. Like, hey, like you maxing out on back squat is actually killing the velocity, even though you think you're building it, right?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, your CNS is fried. You start compensating to try to perform at a high level. Boom, your elbow pops. Like it's kind of like just, I love his analogy on like the spending, but like you have a certain amount in the bank account. Where are you going to allocate that? If you're a guy that's getting a ton of innings, a lot of outings, well, you probably got to spend that more in the weight room. Where if you're like a guy that needs to focus on the delivery, well, you can spend more money on throwing then, right? But you only have a certain amount of money to spend. So I think taking it one step further outside of just throwing, it's training. Like your training volume has a huge effect on what you can then provide when your name's called to perform. So.
Gotcha. What type of workouts? Well, let's end with this. What does a typical workout look like for you guys? You talk about the assessment, full body, getting under the hood, all that stuff, and it's like, okay, cool, let's work out. What do y'all programming look like?
Again, it's obviously different for each guy. So for myself, I like to taking in consideration like right-handed pitcher, left-handed pitcher, ISA. Are they narrow? Are they wide?
What's ISA?
So, just kind of looking at, are they like a wider structure? Are they a more narrow structure? So for, wider guys, I'm probably going to stay with more kind of like bilateral type of movements. Narrow guys, I think doing more unilateral movements is fine with them. Kind of knowing like, are they a guy where they need to improve rate of force production? Maybe placing a little bit more of a focus on that. Maybe they are a brick and like we need to really, focus on, rowing in different planes, pressing in different planes. And so it just kind of depends on, like what they need. It's not like we have, a workout that we're going to give to 5 different athletes and it's all going to be the same cookie cutter. So just looking at, different aspects and their strengths and their weaknesses and what kind of body they are. Again, like, right-handed pitcher, left-handed pitcher. Are they Are they a big body? Are they tall? Are they shorter? And just trying to, create good movement solutions for them and what's going to work for them.
Is there anything that y'all definitely stay away from for upper body lifts, workouts for throwers?
So it kind of just depends. Like if they're dealing with maybe some shoulder issues, then we're definitely going to be a little bit more careful. In my opinion, like as long as you're completely healthy, maybe we're not doing like aggressive like military press, but we're certainly going to do some overhead movements. We're going to be pressing overhead. We're going to, do some pull-ups and allow the body to get in those ranges of motion and feel strong in those ranges of motion. So, it kind of depends on injury history. But if I think it's a good idea, I'm probably going to make them do it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to date myself here, but like when I was playing, it was like pitchers, no bench press. Like
Or overhead.
Or overhead, like you're going to be squat monsters. Like you're going to go squat and deadlift like crazy, and that's going to make you even better. Now it's like, I mean, you said it, like the pec is very important in the mechanic of a throw. The lat is like, we are benching. Like the bench is a real thing. So I really think part of it's like finding end range, being strong at those end ranges, right? So then the ligament doesn't have to take over the move. And also like you got to throw your athletes a little bone. Like maybe they love benching, or, maybe they love squatting. Well, get them engaged. Get them engaged in what you're giving them.
And fire up. Yeah. Some excitement.
Yeah. And I think that gets them the buy-in a little
And more
cleaner.
consistency.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think really where it comes down to is like the volume management. Like, some of our athletes love lifting on game day. Well, then you got to realize like, okay, are they a reliever? Are they a starter? It's so much easier to program for a starter because you're like on a set schedule. Like you may have a reliever that's like, hey, I'm going to pitch today and tomorrow. It's like, well, we still got to fit in our lift, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's prime it today.
Yeah.
So that way you can perform today and tomorrow.
How y'all feel about lifting on game day? Because we used to lift on game day. I used to lift on game day. I was fine.
Yeah.
I would get after it.
Yeah.
And then like it would be in the morning, obviously, and I'd have several hours. I'd do some recovery stuff, and it was fine.
Yeah. I usually just have a conversation with them, maybe try it out. It's for a starter, probably not. Like they're going to exhaust a lot of energy.
Starting pitcher is different. Yeah.
Yeah. Reliever, a little bit different. Try it, and it's going to be something where you get in the gym and you get out. Little primer, get the body moving, get you feeling good, but you should not be in there very long. You should not feel fatigued. You should not feel tired. You should feel pretty good and like ready to go later in the day. So that's probably like what I'm going to have them mess around with.
Yeah.
But even then you're going to have guys where they're just like, you know what, I'd rather just show and go. And in that case, that's fine.
Totally.
Maybe we'll hit something. Yeah. We'll hit something tomorrow maybe then.
Yeah. I'm not going to like run a marathon this morning
Right.
and then pitch a full game tonight.
I have a guy that currently in professional baseball that like loves bench pressing. So it's like, all right, before you go out, like hit a bench or like do some push-ups, and like we just got to make sure like the tissue quality remains okay and you're not becoming a caveman. But like it's a primer for him. I think it's more mental than anything. Like getting you
Get some
locked
jacked
in.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like the smelling salts, right?
Yeah.
Get him going a little bit. And
I love that. I think that's because the mind, like the brain, the mind is such a powerful thing,
For sure. I also think we, for the most part, work off of like a high-low model. Like I like having my guys, whether lift before or after, like if you're going to throw today, like you should also get a high intent lift in today, because the next thing you know, you do it tomorrow. Well, that's not a recovery day. The next thing you know, you've gone a month without a recovery day and you're getting barking pain somewhere. It's like, well, you have been going for a long, long time without taking a break. So, I mean, I guess that kind of answers your question in terms of like lifting on game day. It's like, well, yeah, we probably should, within means,
and then plan, and as best as you can, plan out recovery days, rest days.
I also think recovery days get thrown out there. In my brain, you're either recovering or not, right? Like,
what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, like, so guys will throw out like I'm going to do a recovery lift, recovery throwing. I mean, you're still stressing the system a little bit. Now, yeah, you're not stressing it a lot, but personally, on recovery days for my guys, like if the schedule allows them to, I'm going to probably keep them out of the weight room and maybe like take throwing off too. Like just go to a movie or go hang out with a girlfriend or something. Like in my mind, that's a recovery day. Now you do have those guys where it's like,
is that recovery with the girlfriend?
yeah. You do have those guys that like, they just have to be in the gym. And it's like, okay, like we can, figure some stuff out. But, I think it's, just like finding that balance. And so, for me, I'm like, I mean, we can have these like recovery days, but I think like true recovery is just like not doing anything and going like actually resting, chilling.
Yeah. I think that's that recovery part, like for a lot of high level active people, obviously high level athletes, that stuff needs to be planned in, because it's not, and then you're like, I haven't really rested in like a long time.
Yeah.
And like you're breaking down, you're plateauing, overtraining.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the people that we've worked with were like, yo, don't do anything for 4, maybe even 5 days in a row. Like relax, like you're going to be good. Trust me. And they come back and they're like, I feel way better.
Well, it's like,
and I was like, that's exactly what I needed. And I was like, I had a feeling it was just stacking up a lot,
More doesn't always mean better. It just means more, right?
Yeah.
Like, at some point you got to account for that. And we see that a lot, like with going back to the throwing, like that happens a lot. It's like, oh, pitched yesterday, felt really good the next day, but then I pitched the next day. It's like, well, that's like, just because you feel good doesn't mean you get to like take it to the red line again, right? Like you got to plan this out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for coming in.
thank you.
Share with people what's the best way to reach out to you guys and how they can find you.
So, at Go Prime Performance on Instagram. And I think that's
GoPrimePerformance.com.
Go Prime Performance on Instagram and GoPrimePerformance.com.
Yep.
Up in Port St. Lucie.
Port St. Lucie.
We're right across the street from the Mets spring training complex.
Foul ball away.
Foul ball away. Yeah.
Foul ball. That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for coming in, and we'll definitely have to get y'all on again. I think we're planning to come up and see you guys next week.
Yeah, next for sure.
To visit and see y'all's facility, and we'll definitely blast socials and get all that stuff out there. And if you have any questions for us, we're always open to comments, questions, concerns, conflicting opinions. If you're battling any pain, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can at least chat on the phone and see if you're a good fit, or maybe where to send you or what to do. And we're always open to having conversations and helping people. And we'll catch y'all next time.